The Media Center for Art Education and Technology, a service of the Monterey County Office of Education, along with the Herald Live, presents Prep Nation. Now to your hosts, Dave Kellogg and John Devine.
Welcome to Prep Nation. We're in the CCS football semifinals, and the headline game this week is a repeat of the final game of the regular season.
Sequel.
Shoe game number 2. Although this time it won't be for the shoe, it's for a berth in the CCS finals as Carmel and Pacific Grove kick it off at NPC on Friday night.
Yeah, this has never happened before. I mean, these two teams have never met in the postseason. They obviously have met 66 times in a regular season, where that talks about the shoe. It's 32, and 2. I kind of joked with Chris Morgan the other day. I said, well, we count this towards the rivalry. And he goes, well, maybe we could put an asterisk by it because we're not playing for the shoe. The shoe is staying put. It's staying at Carmel. But the fact that these teams are playing for a berth in the finals, I think, makes it just a little bit bigger. Yeah.
Now, they were both impressive in their CCS opener. You were at Carmel Scotts Valley. What impressed you about Carmel in that game?
Well, just what Carmel does every week. I mean, they take what a defense gives them. I mean, they ran the ball in the first half efficiently. Scotts Valley had 8 guys back at times defending the pass, so Connor Martin threw the ball just 6 times. Second half, he unloaded on them. You know, he also rushed for over 100 yards and threw for over 200 yards.
Wow, so 54-26 victory for him. And the game was at PG of all places.
It was. Carmel has played a lot of their postseason games over the last 3 years at Pacific Grove. That's kind of been their home field, and it's thanks to Pacific Grove allowing them to use that facility. Their facility is not equipped to host post games, at least maybe until next year when they get a new carpet.
Okay. Now, PG traveled and went up to Morgan Hill, where they beat Live Oak, which was a higher seed than them. The Trevor Bearden kid from Live Oak, all-time leading rusher, 180 yards rushing against PG. Yet PG beats them 42-20.
Well, that's the problem with these seedings right now. I mean, everybody knew. I think a lot of teams were licking their chops if they had an opportunity to play Live Oak, and I'm not here to disrespect what they did over the course of the season. But their league was a weaker league, and the way they judge leagues now, me personally, I think there has to be a better way to evaluate these, because the MTL was not a C league this year.
Right.
And because they were a C league, the points really got skewed.
Skewed or skewed, whichever way you want to look at it. Let's talk about 2 weeks ago on that 40-35 victory by Carmel. What were some of your impressions of that game?
The big plays. I mean, Pacific Grove, and we talked about this coming over here, 71 yards, 48 yards, 35 yards, 37 yards, and 27 yards. Those were their 5 touchdowns, all big plays. Carmel, on the other hand, who's known for the big plays and quick scoring, kind of moved the ball at times methodically downfield, a couple of 1-yard touchdown runs, a couple of field goals that ultimately decided that game, almost opposites. But the one thing that I still take from that game is what Carmel did in the final 5 minutes and 45 seconds of the clock, and they were able to run the ball, complete a pass or 2, and not allow Pacific Grove a chance to win that game.
Well, maybe now is a good time to hear more from Carmel coach Golden Anderson.
Hey, Golden, when you saw the brackets come out 2 weeks ago, did you have a feeling that you might be seeing Pacific Grove again in the playoffs?
I didn't really think about it that way. I looked at it as we were all on the same side of the bracket, so I knew that if we won and they won, we'd see each other. But I didn't assume they were going to win. I don't sit around assuming we're going to win. So
right.
I knew there was that possibility, but that was about it.
Yeah. You told me after the first round playoff win against Scotts Valley that if you played Pacific Grove 100 times, flip a coin. Are you that close?
It was a week ago when we played. That's the only thing I can base it on. I can't base it on anything else. We played a really evenly matched game. I think statistically it was pretty even, and the game was really close. Both offenses were clicking, and then both defenses were clicking, and I think the teams are pretty evenly matched athletically from what I saw, and so I'm not surprised it was a close game.
Sure, yeah. Is there any advantage in having just played them 2 weeks ago, or is that a disadvantage?
I think it's the same. No matter what it is, I think it's the same for both teams. You've gotten a dry run against it. You can maybe have a better feel for how guys move around on both sides of the ball for them, and the same for us. And I think both teams look at a lot of missed opportunities and a lot of things they did right, and try to play a cleaner game the next time.
You mentioned missed opportunities. A lot of big plays in that game. Some were breakdowns. Are they fixable?
The breakdowns are. I'm not going to sit here and say that all their big plays were breakdowns. They made plays.
Right.
There's no doubt about that. They made throws and catches and tough runs, and we had Jason Leach bottled up, and he made a great run and cut back against everybody. So I think the breakdowns that we did have are definitely correctable, and we kind of try to correct those every week.
Yeah. And PG is a very explosive team, as we saw last week and in your game against them 2 weeks ago. How do you slow down that team speed?
You got to tackle well. I don't, on a turf field, you don't slow it down. You do your best to rally the ball and tackle, limit big plays. But knowing the fact that if you let them through the first wave and they get open out in space, they're going to outrun guys. It's kind of how we are at times. So if you can keep it bottled up and you tackle pretty well, you're not giving up a bunch of plays. You make the other team have to earn it. And high school teams have to put long drives together. Usually there's not as much success.
Sure. Hey, before we get our Golden, does it feel a little different than just 2 weeks ago when you were playing for the coveted shoe? Because there's no shoe this time. It's just a playoff game. Maybe more at stake in terms of extending your season.
Of course it's different. It's a totally different set of circumstances. Both teams were 9-0 at the time and had no idea about the other one except for what they thought in their minds and played an even game. And now to us, and we talk about it all the time, we prepare for faceless opponents. We're not really thinking about it's PG and this and that. We're looking at it as we're in the semifinals. We've got an opportunity to go to the championship game, and we're going to do whatever it takes to try and win the football game.
4 times in the last 5 years he's been down this road. Thanks, Golden.
Thank you.
Of course, when you're talking running game and Carmel, you got to bring up Holden Smith. He's been over 1,000 yards the past 3 seasons, right?
3 straight seasons of over 1,000 yards and 3 straight seasons with over 20 rushing touchdowns. He's got the Monterey County record now of 77 touchdowns. The other thing about Holden is he came up as a freshman and got a few carries in the playoffs last year, so he's been a part of this atmosphere for 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's hear more from Holden Smith.
Holden, you've been a part of the playoffs now for 4 years. Do you cherish it a little more now, knowing that this could be it for you, or it will be it at some point?
I mean, this is my last year. It's different. Coming through this year it's like a different feeling. You have a different perspective on everything because it is any game could be your last. It's not like freshman, sophomore, junior year, oh, well, there's next year. It's different.
Right. There is no next year, yeah. Is it difficult facing a team for the second time? And in case you've been sleeping under a rock, Carmel's going to host PG this week?
I don't think so. I mean, we've never really done it before. I've never done it before,
right,
facing a team twice in 3 weeks. So, I mean, we'll just have to see.
Sure. Now you beat them in that meeting 2 weeks ago, 40-35. In some ways, did that game maybe help prepare you for the playoffs? Because you guys hadn't been tested really since week 1 against Palma.
I think it maybe got us a kickstart to what the playoffs are going to be like, see how the teams are going to be, because they're definitely a good team. They're a playoff team. I think it just jump-started what's coming.
Sure, yeah. What does Pacific Grove do well defensively? Because they're going to try and bottle you up.
I mean, they run to the ball hard. They're good guys. They run hard, play hard. So,
do you think it'll be another shootout, or do you think maybe it'll be a little bit different this time? And I say that because in the fourth quarter, defenses kind of took over in that game 2 weeks ago.
I really don't know. I mean, we'll see when the game gets there.
Yeah. Hey, before we get it, have you thought at all about what you've accomplished over the last 3 years? And what I mean by that, 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons, over 20 touchdowns, a school record of over 70 touchdowns. Have you had a chance to even think, reflect at all?
I really haven't thought about it much. I'm just trying to practice one day at a time, one game at a time. And then when the season's all over, that's when I'll look back and see what I've done.
Great. All right, Holden, thanks.
All right.
So, John, McCate, I worked with McCate when we televised the shoe game, and one guy I was impressed with was Jake Speed, but I can't quite figure out what position he played. He caught that opening 48-yard touchdown, I believe it was, but he also ran the ball. What position is he?
Well, this is why he's the Mission Trail League Offensive Player of the Year. He's versatile, and his name fits him. He's fast, Last week against Live Oak, they ran him a lot more than they have all season, just because of that speed he has to go around the corner like that. But he's also one of the elite receivers in the area, not just in the MTL. As you mentioned on the second play of the game against Carmel, he caught that 48-yard touchdown pass, had the guy beat by 10 yards when the ball was in the air. I mean, he's a football player is what he is.
Well, let's hear some more from Coach Chris Morgan about PG and their offense.
All right, Chris, after that loss to Carmel a couple of weeks ago, I saw you shake Golden Anderson's hand. Did you kind of say, hey, see you in 2 weeks?
Yeah. We were wondering how many people actually saw that handshake, because probably people were taking pictures and using that on social media to say things. But really, more than anything, we wished each other good luck, and it would say a lot for our league if both of us moved on in one game. Obviously the rivalry, the rematch, a lot of people were going that way, but, we wanted to make our league look strong.
Sure.
The MTAL has kind of got some criticism through the years, and we wanted to make sure that people understand, look, we're a pretty good league in football. We know what we're doing down here. Our kids play hard, and wished each other luck and tried to help each other out a little bit.
Well, and as you know, it's the first time since 1997 that 2 MTL teams have won a playoff game in the same season, so it is big for the league.
Yeah.
When you saw the brackets come out, did the wheels start turning a little bit that, hey, we may see them again.
Well, of course, you're thinking, you're looking in your bracket, looking down the road. But again, I got to go back and say, really, we knew we had our hands full with Live Oak. I mean, the Bearden kid, a very tough physical runner, and we had to make sure we took care of business there first and foremost. But, just like when we were going into the end of this regular season with the possibility of both teams being 9-0, you start kind of looking at it, but let's not look too far ahead. Let's make sure we take care of the business at hand first.
Is it hard playing a team twice in the same season, twice in 3 weeks, particularly a rivalry?
Oh, yeah. I mean, anytime you play a team twice, it's very tough. And as much as maybe we know about Carmel and they know about us, it's still you got to get back up for that game, and especially in a 2-week period, all of a sudden you're back on the field with them. It's just mentally, it's kind of a weird situation,
Sure, yeah. So what has to change this time around? Because you led 3 times in that game.
Well, we got to score more points than that. We had our chances, and obviously Carmel's probably thinking the same thing, that they, left points on the field as well. So I think both teams are saying, look, we had other opportunities to score, and we just need to capitalize and not hurt ourselves. We gave up a couple of kickoffs that we didn't quite field, and that was on me. I'll take the responsibility for that, and we're going to work harder on doing the little things to make sure we take advantage of every opportunity we have this week.
As a coach, do you think back to that last 5 minutes and 45 seconds of the game where they were able to run the ball and literally run out the clock?
Yeah, and that was very similar to us last week against Live Oak. I think we racked off the last 6 minutes of the game, and you really stress on your offense when you need a long, drawn-out drive. You got to buckle down and keep the chains moving. So we need to come up with a bigger stop in that kind of situation and get the ball back, because we're very explosive on offense.
Absolutely, yeah. When you look at Carmel, to me they're a little similar to you. They like to run the ball, they throw the ball efficiently. What do you stop first? Do you have to stop the run first and make them throw, or?
It's a good, like I said, where do you start? I mean, I think, we tried to take the running away, and Spanos had a great game against us. He made some great catches, and Connor beat us with his arm. And so, again, it's one of those things, you got to find the matchup you like in the game and see what the other team's trying to do and then focus on that. I don't think either offense you can really go in and say, let's take this away, because we both have other weapons.
Sure. Now, I know it's early in the week, but are you getting that same feeling that you had 2 weeks ago? I mean, obviously playing for the shoe 2 weeks ago, maybe the stakes obviously a little higher this time.
Oh, yeah, no, there's definitely, again, a renewed interest in this game. I mean, there's people who are asking where the game is going to be, and where can we get tickets again, and there's a little buzz on campus again about the game. And again, I think it's just great for the communities, to have another game like this possibly in the mix, and not just Carmel and PG, but again, the Southern Conference to have a rivalry like this and a playoff game with this magnitude. So one of us is going to move on, and again, that says a lot about the kids we have around here and the quality of football we're playing around here.
I wonder if it should count towards the rivalry, though, because the series is tied 32-32-2.
Yeah, I don't know how many times has Carmel and PG faced off in the postseason.
Never.
Have they ever?
Never.
So this will be the first one.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll just put this one as a little asterisk or something and go on from there. That way we leave the shoe, the way it is till next year.
Great. All right, Chris, thanks.
Thank you.
When it comes to PG's running game, of course, Jason Leach has been the main cog there with 1,200 yards this season. But the guy really running things pretty smoothly has been quarterback Luke Lowell.
Absolutely. I mean, he's thrown 29 touchdown passes this year, which for him surpasses his totals, almost doubles what he did the year before. He's just a smart kid when you see him back there. He doesn't make bad decisions. He knows how to utilize his options. He talks a lot about his offensive line and how they protect him. He knows how to get the ball to speed or to, as you mentioned, Jason Leach, Dylan Chesney, one of the other receivers, Forrest Compton. I mean, they've got options out there. It's not just a couple of guys on this team, and he uses everybody.
All right. Let's hear more from quarterback Luke Lowell.
All right, Luke, is it difficult facing a team twice in a span of 3 weeks, particularly a team that is a rival?
Yeah, it's always difficult facing a team that you've just played, because we know them, they know us, so it comes down to execution. Who's going to execute is the team that's going to win.
Yeah. Now, this offense that you've generated here, it needs 25 points to break the single-season school record. Why is it so much more explosive than the last 2 years that you were behind the center?
Well, we got playmakers all over the field this year. We got receivers that can catch. We got running backs that can run. Our line's blocking. Everyone's clicking this year. It's looking good.
Obviously, you know the offense, too.
Yeah, we all know the offense.
Now, you've had some big plays in this battle. The second play of the game comes to my mind, that touchdown pass you threw. Well, you need a few more of those in this game.
We're going to need as many as we can get. But, long drives, they're good because it keeps their offense off the field. So we're going to try to execute explosive plays. That's part of our game. But long drives
Sure.
will really help us win the game.
Keeps that offense off the field, which is pretty explosive too. Do you anticipate, though, another shootout? Because when I look back at that game 2 weeks ago, the defenses kind of took over in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say it's going to be a defensive battle, but I'm going to say the team that makes the big stop's going to win. So it could be a shootout, but I think the team that wins is the team that plays the best defense.
Yeah, it's tough to beat a team twice in the same season. So is that an advantage for Pacific Grove?
We'd like to think so. It's hard to beat a team twice. But again, they know us, we know them. So it's just who's going to play better on that certain day.
Does it do any good looking at film now?
Yeah, we're still looking at film.
Does it do any good though?
Huh? What was
Does
that?
it do any good?
Does it do any good?
Yeah.
It's still good. It's still as good. Sometimes you find something you didn't see the first time.
Okay.
And then sometimes they pulled some stuff out we didn't expect the first game, so we'll be ready for it now.
Yeah. Real quick before we get out of here, what's it like practicing right now? I mean, there are only 3 teams left in the county still practicing, and obviously you'll be out here on Thanksgiving practicing.
Yeah, it's a privilege. And I've never been able to practice on Thanksgiving before. This is my first time, so it's just great. One more week. Just keep playing your senior year.
Have you thought at all about what you've accomplished this year, or is that something you reflect on when the year is over?
I'll reflect on that at a later time, but it's been a journey and it's been awesome.
Sure has. Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
As we mentioned, the last game went 40-35, but no points in the fourth quarter. Do you see a shootout here or a defensive struggle?
I asked both coaches that because, as you mentioned, the fourth quarter nobody scored, and it was Carmel's defense that forced 3 punts in the fourth quarter. Did not allow Pacific Grove to do anything. But both coaches said, you know what, we want to score points. We feel we got to score points to win this game. And I think they're both thinking they got to score 40 to win this game. And, Carmel's averaging 48 points a game, and Pacific Grove is 25 points away from setting a single-season school record for points this year.
Oh, wow.
So both these teams can light it up. One more thing about this game, Dave. Both these teams have never lost a CCS semifinal game.
Huh. Now, tell me, playing at MPC, does that make any difference?
Well, that's another one there. Pacific Grove has never lost a playoff game at MPC, and Palma is 2-1 with their one loss coming to Palma 2 years ago in that title game in front of 6,000 people.
And what do you expect the crowd to be like on Friday night?
I don't know if it'll be that magnitude. I don't know if the Thanksgiving weekend's going to hurt a little bit. Anytime Palma's involved, there's going to be a big crowd, particularly if it's another local team with a shot at beating them. But again, these are 2 teams, 2 rivals. I expect a very good crowd there.
Okay. Looking down the road, the other Division IV semifinal, of course, is Monterey. They take a road trip up to Atherton, which is on the San Francisco Peninsula, to face Sacred Heart Prep. You talked about in your column how what's impressed you most about Monterey is they seem to learn their lessons. And I was thinking about it. Last week, they took the long road trip and came up with an impressive victory over Menlo. These guys seem to know how to win on the road.
Well, and again, going back to learning from their mistakes, I go back to the Palma game 6-7 weeks ago when they had the lead and they couldn't finish it. And 2 weeks later, they're in the same predicament against San Benito in Hollister, and they go out and score 14 points in the fourth quarter and win that game. 2 weeks ago against Alvarez, I don't think they were overlooking Alvarez, but I think there was a little bit of a hangover effect against Seaside. They made a lot of mistakes. It cost them the game. They made sure that didn't happen again, creating 8 turnovers against Menlo.
So they were focused against Menlo, and again, they had no problem hitting the road.
Yeah, and head coach Tom Newton has talked about how this is a young team that's maturing.
Right.
And I say this is not a young team anymore. This is a team with 10 games under its belt. They are now an experienced football team.
Experienced football team, but they're facing the number 1 seed in the Division IV in Sacred Heart Prep. What do you know about the Gators of Atherton?
Well, what I have learned is that these teams have common opponents, and they're both 3-0 against them. Both have beaten Salinas, both have beaten Seaside, and both have beaten Menlo. I'm looking at the Menlo game a little bit more, though, because Monterey beat them last week 30-12, and the week prior to that, Sacred Heart beat Menlo 10-3. So, if again, you can't draw comparisons based on paper, but when you look at those two, I think they're very evenly matched. Sacred Heart's got a running back by the name of Ricky Grew, who's closing in on 1,000 yards. But what gets my attention about this kid is he's a game breaker. He's averaging almost 8 yards a carry.
And they ran the ball a lot against Seaside, looking at those statistics. I think they ran the ball 58 times or something crazy like that.
That's what they do. I mean, and obviously that's what Monterey does. These teams are very similar in what they do. The one thing that about the Gators that caught my attention is their defense. They've held 3 teams without a touchdown this year and 8 teams to 1 touchdown or less.
Wow. Now, Monterey had a tough time getting started, just getting a game in. They had the forfeit to start off the year, and then they got upset by PG early in the season.
Not necessarily an upset anymore.
Right, you're right. And but they seem to have gotten better every week.
Yeah, I think they have. And again, when they do have a little bit of a hiccup, they seem to respond real well. And this is an evenly matched game. Again, I think these teams are very similar in their abilities and what they like to do. And it's probably going to come down to a turnover to decide this game. I don't know if Monterey likes playing in the afternoon, which is what they're going to be doing Saturday at 1 o'clock. There was talk of that game moving to noon because of the Stanford Notre Dame game down the street, but I guess they're going to keep it at 1 o'clock.
Kind of a surprise for us in the playoffs has been in Division I, where we didn't expect to have a local team in this week, and Alvarez is there in the semifinals.
I wouldn't say we didn't expect them. I mean,
Okay.
actually, I did pick them to win.
Okay. I didn't expect it.
Okay. No, and this has been a magical season for them. We've talked about this all year. This is probably the best football story we've had in 30 years. I mean, we're talking about a team that was 0-10 that is now 11-0. School records in just about every offensive category, and they're still playing good football. And the thing with Alvarez is they've had 5 come-from-behind wins. They were actually down by a point last week as well and came back and won that game. They don't get razzled. They don't panic. I mean, you look at this team and you're saying, who's on this team? I mean, we know who Edric Gamble is. We know who Cesar Ramirez is. They're 2,000-yard running backs. But we don't know who anybody else is, who their receivers are, who their linemen are. They're a quiet, unassuming group that just takes care of business.
Beat Monte Vista of Cupertino last week. Now we've got a familiar opponent coming in, and that's Hollister San Benito, of course, from the Gavilan Division. Team that put up huge numbers last week against Independence. I guess I wasn't surprised that they beat Independence of San Jose, but I was surprised that they scored 62 points against them.
This is just a different team when November rolls around. If you take away the 2 Palma games over the last 2 years, they haven't lost a game when November rolls around.
That's
I mean,
right.
they're defending CCS Division I champions. Their last 4 playoff games, they've outscored opponents 155-62.
What's their secret to turning it on in November?
I remember Salinas coach Steve Goodbuddy always telling me that I want to be playing my best football in November, and I got a feeling that's what San Benito coach Chris Cameron is echoing. Let's play our best football in November. Let's just get to November and see where we are. In the Gavilan Division, if you're 5-5, you can get in the playoffs, and that's kind of what they were. They play good defense. They're a physical team, and you don't hear a lot about David Stanton or Zach Hicks, their running back, but these 2 guys have combined for 27 touchdowns this year. I should say Zach is over 1,000 yards. Stanton's their quarterback. And again, he doesn't have great numbers as a quarterback, but if you remember, he beat Seaside on the last play of the game on a touchdown
that's
pass.
right. Now, these guys are used to playing on the big stage. They're used to playing in CCS semifinals. Alvarez, on the other hand,
Is not.
no. So, do you give a big edge to Hollister in that?
I don't know if I give him a big edge, but I do give him an edge. Even though this game is at Alvarez, the Baylors, they've beaten Alvarez 8 straight years because they were once upon a time in the same league. They did meet in the 2002 postseason with San Benito prevailing 34-13. But going back 10 years ago, these teams played to a tie. For what it's worth.
And starting next year, Alvarez is going to move up to the Gavilan Division, so this will become a regular affair again, unless we have a mix-up of the leagues.
Yeah, I don't see that change. I mean, I see Alvarez and North Salinas both moving up into the Gavilan next year. But I mean, this will be a physical game, and I expect it actually to be a low-scoring game. I don't see San Benito putting 62 points up against Alvarez.
And how much of an edge does playing at Alvarez give the Eagles?
I think it gives them a little bit of edge. It's going to be a great atmosphere there. If you've been to the last 2 or 3 games, they've had great crowds. The one thing that I keep asking people is, why is this game on Saturday at 7 p.m. on the Thanksgiving weekend? I mean...
why is it?
I don't know. It can't be the gate issue with Pacific Grove and Carmel playing on that Friday at Monterey Peninsula College, because I don't think... these are 2 totally different crowds. If I'm Alvarez, I don't want to wait the extra day, but they had the choice. They made a decision to play on Saturday.
Oh, okay. Another championship event will be the State Cross Country Championships on Saturday. Who do we have in that, John?
We've got 28 athletes going to the state championships.
In Fresno?
In Woodward Park in Fresno. No place better to spend your Thanksgiving weekend in
That's
Fresno.
right. I've done that.
But some of them are teams. I mean, and obviously when you take a team, you take 7 individuals with you. But the two athletes, I should say, that I'm looking at is James Welsh from Monterey. He won the CCS Division III title 2 weeks ago, and he's running really well right now. He could be a top 10 guy in Division III.
Okay.
And Edgar Bonilla of King City, runner-up in the Division IV championships 2 weeks ago at Crystal Springs in Belmont. And he's a repeat guy, so he's got some experience. He understands that this is a more flatter, quicker course, and I think that counts for a lot. One team that I also want to keep an eye on is Seaside. I mean, they were in the top 10 last year in the state championships in Division IV, and were third in the CCS this year as a team. 5 of those guys competed in that state championship last year.
So they have the experience and they know the course.
As does Greenfield Girls. You know, people have ignored them.
Girls,
You know, this is their second straight trip to the state championships behind Jocelyn Sosa, who's just a sophomore, but one of the elite runners in our area.
This past weekend, we had another championship event, and that was the bowl game at Cabrillo College. Hartnell ending its season with a victory over Contra Costa, 34-26. But also very significantly was DeAndre Mann ending his career at Hartnell.
Yeah, he's going to go down now as the best running back in the history of that program. And we're talking about guys like Anthony Tony who played there, John Grimm. I mean, there's some really talented running backs that have come out of Hartnell College. But DeAndre now owns the single season and school rushing record, as well as touchdown record. He had 30 touchdowns this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, one other kid that had a great season for them was Anthony Smithson. He led the team in tackles, and he had 8 interceptions, including 2 in that championship game, bowl game. Yeah.
Okay. So who's looking at Mann now?
I understand the University of Utah has made some inquiries about him. He's got a lot of schools looking at him. You know, I don't know how many are in the Pac-12 or the Big Ten, but he has colleges looking at him, and the numbers warrant that. I mean, 1,700 yards and 27 rushing touchdowns and 20-some catches and 3, receiving touchdowns.
You know, Matt Collins has done a very nice job since taking over Hartnell.
You know, he struggled a little bit in those first couple of years. I don't know if it was because he was a younger coach. I think he had trouble getting some of these local kids to buy into what he was preaching. Now he's getting a lot of those local kids. He's got a nice mix. I mean, he's got kids that come from out of state, but he's got a lot of local kids on this team. They get some action, and he gets kids placed. I mean, after 2 years, they're going somewhere. You know, whether it be a D2 or an NAA school, they're going somewhere. And he's had 2 guys that are playing for the University of Arkansas right now.
Oh, okay. Hartnell be pretty strong again next season?
I think so. I mean, Michael Turner will be back as a quarterback next year. He saw some time. In fact, he didn't have a pick in his first 90 attempts this year. So, I mean, as he learns that offense, I think that'll help. And when you're winning, people want to play for you. You know, and they've won 2 bowl games in the last 3 years.
JC basketball is underway now, and is MPC off to a fast start? Is that
The
what
women
it is?
are, yes.
Okay.
They're 4-2 this year. You know, they struggled last year mightily, and they're back. Wendy Bates, one of my favorite coaches, she's done a great job this year of getting some local athletes in there. Felicia Villarreal from Soledad, scoring champion over the last 2 years, she's on board. And Kayana Rivera, who's a Salinas High graduate, was her point guard last year. She's kind of running the show for the Lobos right now. So, I mean, they're an interesting and talented team that, could win 20 games this year.
Coast Conference maybe make it to the postseason?
It's tough in the Coast Conference. It's a strong conference, but they're going to be competitive this year, and a postseason berth could be in the cards in a couple months.
Okay. More Prep Nation continues right after this.
The Monterey County Herald, news at your fingertips 24/7. With the Herald newspaper, website, and mobile apps, you get local, national, and international news, photos, and video. Local news written by local journalists from the largest news outlet in Monterey County. Breaking news online or directly on your mobile device, including up-to-the-minute weather. The Monterey County Herald is more than talking heads and sound bites. It's award-winning journalism at your fingertips 24/7.
And that's it for Prep Nation this week.